call this meeting to order. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everybody. This evening we have Miss Heidi Coney and the students from her advanced guitar class who are here to perform for us this evening.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for this opportunity. We'd like to start with My Country 'Tis of Thee. Next, we'd like to play for you Green Sleeves. I don't know if you know the Green Sleeves. It's an old English folk song, but they say it was written by King Henry VIII for his love, Anne Boleyn, before they were married. So it's taken on many forms, this melody. I think you'll recognize it. If you don't recognize it by the name Green Sleeves, I think you will recognize it when you hear it now. Hope you enjoy. It's a trio piece. The people in the front row will be playing this one. So player threes have to drop their sixth string down one note to D, drop D, which gives it a beautiful, full, low sound. We hope you love two midwinter carols now. And so I'm going to start them off and move away. They're going to do it on their own, listening and watching. Our recital is this Friday, 7 p.m. at the high school auditorium. Free admission, 7 o'clock. Please come and join us. Thank you.
Barber. I'm in 11th grade and I've been playing for 3 years.
TJ Rolnick. I'm in 11th grade and I've been playing for 4 years.
I'm Patrick Brown. I'm in 10th grade and I've been playing for 2.5 years.
I'm Landon O'Neill. I'm in 12th grade and I've been playing for 5 years.
I'm Eric Schwartzmeyer. I'm in 10th grade and I've been playing for 3 years.
My name is Nick Dubinsky. I'm in 9th grade. I've been playing for about 4 years.
I'm Seamus Conley.
That's going to change.
I'm Seamus Conley. I'm in 9th grade and I've been playing for 2 years.
I'm Mike Miller. I'm in 11th grade and I've been playing for 3 months.
Wow, 7 grades. I'm in 11th grade. I've been playing 3 years.
Colin Cordial. I'm in 9th grade. I've been playing for 2.5 years.
Spencer Kasnick. I'm in 10th grade and I've been playing for 3 years.
I'm Nick Hogman. I'm in 11th grade and I've been playing for about 3 years.
I'm Erin Shukevich. I'm in 12th grade and I've been playing for about 4 months. I'm Erin Gillespie. I'm in 9th grade and I've been playing for 3 years.
I'm Ethan Onicki, and I'm in 9th grade, and I've been playing guitar for 2 years.
I'm Jasmine Saad. I'm in 11th grade and I've been playing for 4 years.
I'm Kendra Richards. I'm in 9th grade and I've been playing for 1.5 years.
Thank you for your time. Friday, 7 o'clock. We will see you at the high school.
At this time, I'd like to ask if anyone would like to address the board on reorganization issues only. There will be time later for public comments if you have other items you'd wish to discuss. Okay, if there's no one that wishes to talk to the board, I'd like at this time to introduce the Honorable Judge Richard Opiella, who will administer the oaths of office to our new board members.
Thank you.
New and returning board members.
President, board, pleasure to be here. That was beautiful, I tell you what. Time of our world right now, of all the turmoil, difficulties, the peace that goes up front. It's amazing. So when you carry out your duties over the next year, I would suggest try to reflect on their talent. We carry that message into the next year. It's beautiful. I call to the front of the board, Helen D. Spade. Ms. Spade. Obey and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth. And that I will discharge my duties of this office with fidelity.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Please raise your right hand. I, please state your name.
I, Arlene Bender,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
and that I will discharge my duties
I will discharge my duties
My duties
of this office
of this office
with fidelity.
with fidelity. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a touchscreen. Oh, there's an iPad in here. I thought it was one of those Acer. He's getting all right. Yeah, sorry.
I will now accept nominations for a temporary chairperson. Would anyone like to make a nomination?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Mike Yeomans.
Are there any other nominations? All in favor of Mike serving as temporary chairperson?
Aye.
Okay, I will now turn the gavel over to Mr. Yeomans.
I don't have to get up to it. Of course, I just lost my spot. All right, I got it back. Okay. All right, so I will now open the floor for nominations for board president.
I'd like to nominate Arlene Bender.
And I would like to second that.
Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Ed Wilgus.
Any second on that?
Second.
Okay. And Mr. Solicitor, in the event we have two nominations, do we take them in order?
You can either do it in order, or you could ask for a vote, voice vote per person, if you'd like, in terms of ask who they vote
Okay.
for.
I think we'll do it the latter way. So let's go one by one, and so you either vote for Ms. Bender or Mr. Wilgus.
Right. Okay, I'll take the roll call for that. Mrs. Bender.
Mrs. Bender.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Wilgus.
Mr. Muha.
Mr. Wilgus.
Dr. Nolish.
Mr. Wilgus.
Mr. Nudi.
Mr. Wilgus.
Mrs. Reed.
Mrs. Bender.
Mrs. Spade.
Mrs. Bender.
Mr. Wilgus.
Mr. Wilgus.
Mr. Yeomans.
Mr. Wilgus.
Okay, by a vote of 6 for Mr. Wilgus and 3 for Mrs. Bender, Mr. Wilgus will serve as board president.
Thank you. Thank you all. I could now entertain nominations for vice president.
I would like to nominate Mrs. Kathy Reed. And I would like to second that.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for vice president?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Mr. Lou Nudi.
Is there a second?
I'd like to second that.
Thank you. So I guess we'll do the same thing.
See if there's any other nominations.
Oh, I'm sorry, if there are any other nominations at this point? Okay.
Okay, I'll take the roll call vote for
Please.
the vice president office. Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Nudi.
Mr. Muha.
Mr. Nudi.
Dr. Nolish.
Mr. Nudi.
Mr. Nudi.
Mr. Nudi.
Mrs. Reed.
Oh, Mrs. Reed.
Mrs. Spade.
Mrs. Reed.
Mr. Wilgus.
Mr. Nudi?
Mr. Yeomans.
Dr. Nudi.
Mrs. Bender.
Mrs. Reed.
Okay, by a vote of 6 for Mr. Nudi and 3 for Mrs. Reed, Mr. Nudi has been elected to serve as vice president.
Thank you. We can now move on to the reappointment of the solicitor. And that would be to address, or at least nominate Mr. Michael Witherall.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
We can now move on to the adoption of Resolution 2015-7, appointing Mr. Witherall as the collector of delinquent school district real estate taxes.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll now accept nominations for 2 Northern Area Special Purpose School representatives and alternates. So I will entertain any nominations from the floor for those. We have to nominate at least 2. Do we have to also
I'd like to nominate Arlene Bender.
Okay.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Mr. Muha.
You, okay. Are there any other
I'd
nominations?
like to nominate Mrs. Reed.
Okay, and I would like to nominate Mr. Nudi as a representative. Any other nominations?
Now, the interesting thing at this point is you're electing 2.
Right.
Right.
So you may want to take these
How do you want to do it?
Well, it's going to be interesting because you have a couple, if you do it the way you just did it, I mean, you could take the two highest votes, for example, two highest vote getters, but actually each person should have two votes in terms of who they won.
Right.
So that would probably be the easiest way of doing it, is doing a roll call and each person vote for two of those nominated.
Okay.
Then whoever has the most votes gets.
Can I make a statement here?
Please.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but I think we need to share this. I think whenever we vote on this, we have to take into serious consideration that Arlene Bender has been on the Beatty Board for many years, and she serves as secretary out there. So if she isn't reappointed, I don't know what Beatty does. Do you know, Dr. Manarino?
I don't. They would just, we'd have to reorganize there as well.
Yes, they would have to have a reorganization, and I was going to bring that also up. I find this, this whole process to be quite disturbing. Obviously, there has been discussion among board members, and I have not been privy to it. But I am asking for your support for Beatty. I love that school. I've worked on it for years. I've been a part of the building, and it's just truly important to me. I'm just asking for your support.
I forget who's on nominating.
Okay. We also, along with this, this appointment, there comes two alternates. Is that correct?
Well, actually, what you've done in the past is the entire board serves as alternates, so that if someone can't make it, then anybody on the board then serves as an alternate. That's what you've done in the past.
Okay. Okay, so we have four nominations: Mrs. Bender, Mr. Muha, Mrs. Reed, and Mr. Nudie.
So on a roll call, each person will vote for two of those nominated.
Right, okay. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, Mr. Muha.
Mr. Muha, Mrs. Bender.
Dr. Nolish.
Mr. Muha, Mr. Nudie.
Mr. Nudie.
Mr. Nudie and Mr. Nudie.
Mr. Who?
Who's your second one?
Mr. Nudie. That's,
You can't vote for yourself twice.
what's it?
You got to vote for two people.
You have to vote for another one besides yourself.
Oh, okay. Mr. Muha.
Mrs. Reed.
Mrs. Bender and Mrs. Reed.
Mrs. Spade.
Mrs. Bender and Mrs. Reed.
Mr. Wilgus.
Mr. Muha and Mr. Nudie.
Mr. Yeomans.
Mr. Muha, Mr. Nudie.
Mrs. Bender.
Mrs. Bender and Mrs. Reed.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Nudie and Mr. Muha.
I can't believe you guys are doing this. I can't believe this.
This is a shame. This is the worst I've ever seen it.
I have Mr. Muha winning. Mr. Muha has 6 votes. 6. Mr. Nudie has 1, 2, 3,
5 votes.
4, 5 votes. Mrs. Bender has 4 votes. And Mrs. Reed has 3 votes. So our northern area representatives are Mr. Muha and Mr. Nudie.
Okay, we could move on now to take nominations to appoint the legislative chairperson. Are there any nominations for legislative chairperson?
You already had it on the first agenda. It was going to be Lou Nudie.
There's none on there now.
I have to say something.
Well,
This meeting is very upsetting to me. And I'm one that has to say it right out front. What you're witnessing this evening is the fall of the North Hill School District School Board. This is the first year that we haven't all been shared with who would be running for president, seeking their nomination, their support, and also vice president. Whenever they took the Northern Area Board away from Arlene and I tonight, they never even informed us that this could occur. This is strictly North Hills politics, and you can look down the record. It's political, and they're voting their party way. It's a shame. I hope this changes in the next couple months.
Okay, let's move to appoint the legislative chairperson. We do need a nomination. I will nominate Mr. Nudi.
Second.
Is there any discussion other than Mr. Nudi? Is there anybody else who'd like to entertain nominations? Okay, so that being said, all in favor of Mr. Nudi, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Could you, who said
call,
no?
make sure.
Arlene?
We'll do a roll
I
call.
said no.
I said no.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next we need to designate the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and the Tribune Review as the official newspapers for legal notices. Do I have a motion to, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next one, we're going to adopt Resolution 2015-8, authorizing the filing of the appropriate affidavit with the Secretary of the Commonwealth in accordance with the Uniform Facsimile Signature Act of 1961.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next motion we have is to establish the meeting dates for 2016. If the calendar is a part of the agenda items, if there's, unless there's a discussion, I'd like to have a motion to move to accept the dates as listed in the agenda items.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the reorganization committee.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. We will now